Have you ever experienced a fracture in a deeply important relationship? I mean, maybe it's with a lifelong friend or a romantic partner, or, even your relationship with God.
Yeah, those are the ones that really hurt.
Right. And when you inevitably try to fix that fracture, I want you to really think about how that repair process actually feels. Does it feel like you are carefully, deliberately rebuilding a structure from the ground up?
Which takes a ton of work, by the way.
Exactly. Or does it feel more like you're just, slapping a temporary cheap bandage over a broken bone, crossing your fingers, and just hoping it heals straight?
Man, it is a really painful question to start with, honestly. Because, well, if we are being completely real here, almost all of us default to the bandage.
Oh, absolutely. It's just so much easier.
It is. It's human nature to take the path of least emotional resistance.
Mhm.
I mean, the bandage is quick. The bandage avoids all those grueling, awkward conversations.
Yeah, no one wants to have a 3-hour talk about their feelings.
Exactly. But physiologically and psychologically, too, a badly set bone doesn't just magically fix itself. It heals crooked. And it breaks again in the exact same spot the very next time any real pressure is applied.
Which is exactly why we are digging into this today. So welcome to our deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We are looking at a really fascinating stack of sources today, centered around a truly ancient text. We're talking about the Song of Solomon, specifically chapter 6, alongside this modern psychological and practical analysis of its themes.
Which is such an unexpected pairing, honestly.
It really is. Now, if you're sitting there listening and thinking, why on earth are we looking at ancient poetry to fix my modern communication problems? Just stick with me.
Yeah, there's a huge payoff.
Right. Our mission for this deep dive is to look right past the beautiful, flowery, sometimes honestly bizarre language and extract what turns out to be a timeless, highly practical blueprint.
Because it really is a blueprint.
It is. We are going to look at how to repair broken connections the right way and then apply that blueprint directly to your life.
And it is incredibly relevant material, despite its age. But to really grasp what is happening here, we have to set the stage a little bit.
Okay, lay it on us.
Well, it helps to know what happened immediately before this text. So if you look at chapter 5 of this book, it is entirely about misalignment. I mean, just pure tension.
It's just totally out of sync.
Exactly. It's missed connections, misunderstandings, and this profound emotional distance growing between two lovers. What we're looking at today in chapter 6 is the immediate aftermath of that fallout.
The fallout.
Yeah, it's the sequence of what happens when a connection is reestablished, and not accidentally, and not just casually bumping into each other, but intentionally choosing to rebuild.
Okay, before we can really extract the mechanics of, conflict resolution from this, we really need to look at the literal scene playing out here, because the imagery is wild.
It's very intense.
Yeah, the chapter opens with this intense, jarring clarity. The woman is asked where her partner is, and instead of being vague or, playing games or giving the ancient equivalent of the silent treatment.
Which we all do.
Right. But she doesn't. She confidently declares exactly where he is. She says he's gone down into his garden to the beds of spices to gather lilies.
Right.
And then she drops this incredibly famous, definitive line. She says, "I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine."
Which, if you think about it, is a massive, profound shift from the confusion and all the chasing we see in the previous chapter.
Oh, for sure.
She is firmly grounding the relationship. There's no more ambiguity. I mean, she isn't leaving any room for doubt about where they stand with one another.
Right. She just lays the foundation right there. And then he speaks, and his response is to just completely shower her with praise.
Yes.
But, and I have to be honest here, this is where it gets really interesting for modern ears. The specific compliments are definitely from another millennium.
They don't exactly translate to today's standards.
Not at all. He compares her beauty to magnificent, powerful cities like Tirzah and Jerusalem. He says she is as awe-inspiring, or the word used is terrible, as an army with banners.
Yeah, it's a very majestic, almost intimidating kind of beauty he's describing. I mean, it's not soft or fragile. It's a conquering, undeniable presence.
It is. But then he gets extremely specific about her physical features, and this is where I was just laughing while reading the sources.
The animal comparisons.
Yes. He compares her hair to a flock of goats appearing from Gilead. Her teeth are compared to perfectly matched sheep coming up from the washing.
Right, clean sheep.
Yeah, and it says every single one has twins and not one barren among them. So perfectly symmetrical teeth, I guess.
That's the implication, yeah.
And then her temples are compared to a piece of a pomegranate.
Well, it paints quite the vivid picture for an agrarian society,
It really does. I mean, cultural flirting differences aside, trying to use your hair reminds me of a massive flock of goats, or, your teeth are like twin sheep as a modern pickup line at a coffee shop.
That would not go over well.
No. It would probably end with someone throwing an iced latte in your face.
Definitely.
But joking aside, I have to push back on this a little bit. What is actually happening here psychologically? Because my initial instinct when reading this, right after a massive fight, is that he is just love bombing her.
Ah, that's a really common reaction to this passage.
Right. Like he's in the doghouse, and there is this sudden, overwhelming avalanche of intense verbal praise right after a period of serious distance. I mean, isn't this just sweet talking his way out of trouble?
It's a completely fair assumption, but according to the psychological analysis in our sources, that is not what is happening here.
Wait, really? It's not just flattery?
No, not at all. What's fascinating here is that this isn't just romantic fluff or an attempt to quickly smooth things over. From a psychological standpoint, what we are witnessing is a mechanism called intentional reaffirmation.
Intentional reaffirmation.
Think about it.
Yeah.
After a major disruption or a severe fight, your perceived value in that relationship takes a massive hit. You feel deeply insecure.
Because the distance makes you feel like, well, like you don't matter to them anymore.
Precisely. The text is showing us that after a fracture, value cannot just be assumed. You can't just walk back into the room and think, well, she knows I love her.
Oh, because the baseline has shifted.
Exactly. It must be explicitly restated out loud. By being incredibly specific, even with the goats and the pomegranates,
Yeah.
you know he is actively, deliberately reestablishing her worth to him. He is proving that he sees her in detail.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's not just, you're pretty, let's forget about the fight. It's, you are inherently valuable to me, and I am proving I know that by being highly specific and observant.
That's exactly it.
That makes so much more sense. And he emphasizes her absolute uniqueness, too. Like, the text mentions there are 60 queens, 80 concubines, and countless versions, basically, this massive, overwhelming crowd of beautiful women in a royal court setting.
Right. A lot of competition, essentially.
Yeah. But he says, my dove, my undefiled, is but one. She is the only one.
Yeah, he is making it unequivocally clear that she is set apart from the masses. She isn't just one of many options. She is the only option.
Wow.
And that specific phrasing, reaffirming her unique, irreplaceable place in his life, that is the critical first step to actually healing that broken bone we talked about at the beginning.
So if we strip away the pomegranates and the goats, we can actually translate this ancient poetry into the practical mechanics of a modern relationship.
Definitely.
Because the analysis in our sources essentially treats this sequence as a step-by-step manual. The first core mechanic is moving from confusion to absolute clarity.
Yes, real connection is restored with certainty, not guesswork. When she says, he is in the garden and I am his, he is mine, she is actively replacing the ambiguity of their past conflict with solid ground.
Because returning to ambiguity is just resetting the timer on the exact same problem.
Exactly. If a relationship is going to come back together, it has to come back stronger and clearer. I mean, if you walk on eggshells, unsure of where you stand, the fracture is still there.
You know, this actually makes me think of a tech analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
It sounds a lot like when your computer crashes. When everything freezes, the screen goes black, and you lose all your work, you don't just hit the power button, turn it back on, and hope for the best.
I mean, you can, but...
Right, you can, but it's going to crash again. You have to actually run a diagnostic. You have to find the bug, figure out what went wrong, and install a software update so it doesn't crash the exact same way.
I love that. And to push your tech analogy even further, updating the software means actually going into the code and finding the bug. In human relationships, that bug is almost always an unspoken assumption.
Like assuming they're mad at you.
Right. One person assumes the other is angry or assumes they don't care. The text shows these two individuals replacing those buggy assumptions with explicit out-loud declarations of value. They are patching the code.
They really are patching the code, and that connects directly to the next mechanic, which is uniqueness versus replaceability. That line we discussed earlier, my dove, is but one. Our sources point out that feeling replaceable actively kills connection.
It destroys it from the inside out. People will only stay, and more importantly, they will only invest in a place where they feel uniquely valued.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you treat a partner, a friend, or even an employee like they're interchangeable cogs in a machine, or if everything in the relationship feels casual and random, Nothing will feel secure. Security comes from distinction.
Which brings up a really interesting point about the tone of this whole reconciliation. Because looking at some of the alternative psychological perspectives in our sources, there's a school of thought that says if a reconciliation lacks fiery, dramatic intensity, it's actually a red flag.
That means you don't care anymore.
Exactly, that you're just experiencing apathy or emotional flatlining. I mean, my instinct after a big fight is that a reconciliation needs to be this huge, tearful, highly emotional event to prove that we care. Is that what we are seeing in this chapter?
No. And that is actually a major misconception that our primary sources tackle head on. People often chase the dramatic high of a passionate makeup after a massive fight.
Oh, completely.
They think the wild emotional swing is proof of love. But there are no wild emotional swings in Chapter 6. It's remarkably steady, it's calm, it's confident.
But how do we distinguish between healthy stability and just awkward emotional distance or like giving up?
The difference really lies in the clarity we just talked about. Apathy is quiet because people have stopped trying. Stability is quiet because the security is so absolute that it doesn't need to scream to be heard.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Peace and steady connection sustain a relationship far better than chasing emotional spikes. The excitement of a dramatic makeup might feel good in the moment, but it operates like a drug. It's a temporary high, and it's not sustainable. Stability is the bedrock of what actually lasts.
So instead of just hitting reset on the relationship and riding the emotional roller coaster again, you are rewriting the code to establish peace. And the proof that the code has actually been rewritten is visible growth.
That is the final piece of this human blueprint. Healthy relationships evolve. There's a noticeable shift in tone from the previous chapter because growth isn't optional. It is the absolute proof that something was actually learned from the conflict.
Right. Otherwise, you're just stuck in a loop.
Exactly. If you fix a relationship, but neither of you changes your behavior, you haven't fixed anything. You've just delayed the next crash. It requires mutual choice. Love is an ongoing decision, and here, both parties are actively choosing each other again, not just coasting on the feelings they had when they first met.
Okay, I want to take a breath here because this is where the deep dive gets really profound.
It really does.
We've been talking about this in terms of human psychology, how we need explicitly stated value, clarity, and stability to trust a partner or a friend again. But our sources actually scale this exact same blueprint up to the ultimate relationship, which is our connection with God.
Yes.
Does the divine relationship require that same explicit resetting? Like, how do these exact mechanics of restoration apply to our spiritual lives?
It's a beautiful application, actually, because the exact same psychological and relational principles of connection apply to the divine. God designed us for relationships, so the mechanics of how we connect remain consistent.
Okay, let's break that down.
Let's start by scaling up the concept of uniqueness. Just as the beloved in the poem is singled out from crowds of 60 queens and 80 concubines, think about how God views the individual.
Which is hard, honestly, because it is so easy to feel insignificant. I mean, you look around and you're just one face in a crowd of 8 billion people on a rock spinning through space. It's really easy to feel entirely replaceable.
Precisely. And if you carry that mindset into your spiritual life, you will never feel secure. But the theological analysis points out that the spiritual reality is vastly different. God views you as entirely unique and deeply valued.
Not just 1 in a billion.
Right. When you truly internalize that God intentionally sets you apart, that you are his only one in a specific, deeply personal sense, it builds a profound level of trust. You aren't just a number on a cosmic spreadsheet. You are known in detail.
Just like the hyper-specific pomegranate-level compliments in the text, you are known intimately. That shifts everything. But what about the concept of stability versus intensity? Because when I look at faith communities, I see people constantly chasing these massive spiritual highs.
It's very common, and it mirrors the human relationship dynamic perfectly. People want the burning bush moment.
Yes, the huge emotional rush.
Exactly. They want the dramatic, overwhelming, tearful feeling of divine presence at a weekend retreat or a major event. But just like in a marriage, true trust in God isn't built on emotional spikes. It's built on consistency, calm, and the quiet reliability of daily faith.
So if your faith requires a constant state of emotional euphoria or like a crisis to survive, what happens when life just gets boring?
It collapses.
Yeah.
The moment life gets mundane or difficult or God feels silent, a faith built on emotional highs will shatter. Stability isn't boring. It is the absolute bedrock of lasting faith.
That is so true.
It's the ability to say, I am his and he is mine, even on a random Tuesday when you don't feel anything particularly magical.
Wow. That makes me think of another massive pitfall. It is so incredibly easy to treat faith like a passive subscription service.
Oh, entirely.
You sign up, you set it to auto pay, and you basically forget about it. You just coast until something breaks down, you lose a job, or someone gets sick, and suddenly you're calling the divine customer service hotline demanding a fix.
Yeah, the emergency hotline approach to God, it treats the divine like a vending machine rather than a relationship.
Exactly. So if someone listening is in that place, maybe they've drifted, maybe there's been tension, distance, or a major fracture in their faith. How do we ensure that when we reconnect with God, we are actually showing the visible growth mentioned in the text?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. How do we avoid just hitting the reset button in a panic? What does explicitly stating our commitment actually look like in daily practice?
Well, this is where the concept of mutual choice comes in. Running back to God in a panic during a crisis, begging for help, but having zero intention of changing anything about how you live your daily life that is just slapping the bandage on the broken bone.
So you're not fixing the code.
No, you're not. True spiritual repair requires intentional clarity.
So no more ambiguity, no more hiding.
Right. It means stepping out of the vague auto-pay relationship. It looks like waking up and acknowledging the relationship before the crisis hits. It's moving away from purely transactional prayers, fix this problem for me, and moving towards relational ones.
Like, I am choosing to trust you today, even when nothing is currently on fire.
Exactly. You have to explicitly reaffirm your choice to follow him, especially after a period of wandering. Faith isn't a one-time event that you check off a list. It's an ongoing, daily decision.
Yeah.
God continually chooses us, setting us apart uniquely. But the relationship only grows when we actively, explicitly reaffirm our choice to follow him.
Wow. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've covered a lot of ground today. We took ancient poetic metaphors, flocks of goats, pomegranates, and gardens, and we translate them into a highly practical, modern psychological blueprint.
We really did.
And then we scaled that blueprint all the way up to the divine, looking at how to fortify our spiritual lives. But the ultimate final truth of this text, the core takeaway from all our sources today, is this. This chapter isn't just about two people making up after a fight.
No, it is far more foundational than that.
It's about how to restore something properly so it doesn't break the exact same way again. It's about doing the diagnostic, finding the bug, and rewriting the code. It's about refusing to settle for the temporary bandage.
And if I can leave the listener with a final thought to mull over, it goes back to that very strange, almost intimidating compliment we discussed earlier. The Shulamite woman is described as being terrible or awe-inspiring as an army with banners.
It's such a striking, powerful image.
It is, and think about what that implies for you. There is a fierce, almost militant strength in a connection that has been broken, faced the tension head-on, and intentionally rebuilt itself, whether that is with a romantic partner, a lifelong friend, or with God. We often think that a relationship that has suffered a fracture is permanently weakened. But true vulnerability and the hard work of intentional repair do not make you weak.
No, they don't.
Going through the fire, discarding the cheap bandage, and doing the grueling work of choosing clarity and stability doesn't leave you fragile. It makes your relationship battle-tested. It makes it unbreakable. When you do the work to set the bone correctly, you become like an army with banners.
That is incredibly powerful, a battle-tested connection. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to turn this directly over to you. We've laid out the blueprint from the ancient gardens to modern psychology. You know the difference between a temporary bandage and a true structural repair. How will you apply this information in your life?